Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian from Zombie Guitar here. In this lesson, I'm going to go over the concept of borrowing chords from parallel keys in order to spice up your chord progressions. Okay, so the first part of this lesson, I'm going to be just going over what it means to have a diatonic chord progression, to use chords that are strictly in a particular key, and then as we move on, I'm going to show you how you can begin pulling non-diatonic chords or pulling out of key chords and incorporating them into your diatonic chord progressions through the use of borrowing. Alright, so this is one method of adding non-diatonic chords to a chord progression. The next lesson that I make after this is going to be about secondary dominance, which is yet another method on how you might go about doing this. Alright, so with that said, let's get started. Okay, so before we get into borrowing chords, first I just want to give a quick review of what it means to just play completely diatonically within a key. Okay, so take the key of C major, for example. Alright, so throughout this lesson I'm going to be using the circle of fifths as a reference. I use the circle of fifths all the time. It's a very, very useful tool because the circle of fifths lumps all of the diatonic chords together. At least it lumps 6 out of the 7 diatonic chords together. So take a look at the circle of fifths here. If you're in the key of C major, okay, 6 of your diatonic chords are lumped together. C would be your 1 chord, F would be your 4 chord, G would be your 5 chord, and then you have your 3 minor chords in the key of C major. A minor would be your 6 chord, D minor would be your 2 chord, E minor would be your 3 chord. Okay, so those 6 chords are your 3 major and 3 minor chords in the key of C major. Okay, every key has that one diminished chord in it as well, but for the purpose of this lesson, we're not going to worry about that. Okay, we're just going to look at the 3 major and the 3 minor chords of a diatonic key. Okay, so you can look at this from the perspective of C major, and those are your 6 diatonic chords in the key of C major, or you can look at this in the perspective of A minor. Okay, A minor is the relative minor of C major, so you could also call this the key of A minor, and you have the same 6 available diatonic chords. Okay, so if you were to create a song using C, F, G, A minor, D minor, and E minor, it would sound fine, all the chords would work, everything would sound great. However, at some point you may want to go beyond that, and you may want to add interest to your chord progressions or your songs, okay? And that's where borrowing chords comes into play. Alright, so when you borrow chords, one of the first places you want to look is to the parallel minor key. Okay, so if you're in the key of C major, the parallel minor key would be the key of C minor. Okay, so you could look counterclockwise on the circle of fifths, and the next grouping of 6 chords right counterclockwise to, you know, the grouping of the C major chords. Those are going to be your 6 chords that are in the key of C minor. Okay, so those 6 chords are going to be chords that you can pull from in order to borrow and add out-of-key chords into your progression and spice things up. So I'm going to give you 5 examples in this particular section, and instead of working in the key of C major, I'm going to work in the key of E major, okay, just to show you that this works for any key. And, you know, everyone that explains music theory, they always do it in C major, so just to try and be different, I'm going to do things in E major. Alright, so with that said, let's look at the 6 diatonic chords of E major. Alright, you see the 6 diatonic chords are lumped together in this grouping of 6. Okay, so E major would be your 1 chord, A major would be your 4 chord, B major would be your 5 chord, okay, and then C sharp minor would be your 6 chord, and then your 2 chord would be F sharp minor, and then your 3 chord would be G sharp minor. Okay, so you could look at this as either the key of C sharp minor, or you can look at this as the key of E major. Okay, so either one works. So let's just say that this is the key of E major, and I want to write a song, and all of my chords are going to be diatonic to the key of E major, so I'm just going to make something up real quick. Okay, so I don't think I used all 6 chords, but I used 5 of the 6 chords. All of those chords were in the key of E major. Everything seemed to sound good. Everything was great. Okay, so that's strictly diatonic. Well, now, say I get bored of that and I want to spice things up. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to look to the key of E minor. Okay, because that's the parallel key of E major. So the key of E minor gives me 6 other available chords that I could try out, okay? So, with that said, taking a look at the circle of fifths, let me try and give you 5 different examples of how I might go about pulling chords from the parallel minor key, okay? So, the first example, I'm going to steal the G, okay? The G chord, I'm going to take that from the key of E minor, and I'm going to throw that, and I'm going to make a new progression out of it, okay? So, let's hear how that sounds. Okay, so I threw a G in there, and that gave it, it spiced it up. It spiced it up a little bit. It gave it just a unique sound. It still sounded like it was the key of E major. Okay, I don't think anyone's arguing that, but that one chord gave it just enough interest to, make it sound a little bit different than just staying diatonic to the key of E major. Okay, so that's one example. All right, so another example, I refer to this as the Mario cadence. Okay, so if you ever played regular Nintendo, played Super Mario Bros. 1, at the very end, after he gets through a board and collects the flag, there's this cadence, and it sounds something like this. Okay, so I took this C chord and I took the D chord. Those both come from the key of E minor. Okay, so those are both borrowed chords, and I stuck it into the key of E major. So if I was to play a song that's strictly in the key of A major, and then I wanted to end the song with the Mario cadence, I could do so. So let's hear how that sounds. Okay, it was kind of abrupt, it kind of didn't fit, but I'm just kind of making these things up. I'm not really taking time to perfect these songs, but you see how that Mario cadence sort of, it made things sound a little bit more interesting, okay? So those 2 chords were temporarily not in the key of E major, but the rest of the song was in the key of E major, and then I threw that Mario cadence in there, and that's where I got those 2 chords from, okay? So, the third example that I'm going to give you is going to be, basically I'm going to steal the A minor out of the key of E minor. Alright, so this is a very common one. This is basically where you take whatever key you're in, you take the 4 chord, which is always going to be major in a major key, and then you directly follow that 4 chord with the minor version of that same chord, okay, and then you go to your tonic chord, okay? So if you're in the key of E major, your 4 chord is going to be A. So basically I'm going to go A to A minor. A minor is borrowed from that parallel key, and then to E, okay? So no matter what song I'm playing, Okay, so that's a common one too. Basically, you take the 4 chord, which is part of the key of E major, take the A, and then directly follow it by the minor version of that 4 chord, which is the borrowed chord, okay? And then you resolve it to the 1 chord, which in this case is E, okay? So you're going to hear that a lot. I'm sure you've heard that many times. That's just another example of borrowing chords from the parallel minor key. Okay, another example here, I'm going to now steal the C chord out of the parallel minor key, okay? So let's hear how that sounds. Alright, sounded pretty cool. Definitely added some interest to the progression, and it was a borrowed chord. Alright, so that is the 4th example. So here's the 5th example. Okay, so for this last example, I'm going to use a D major chord. Okay, so again, the D major chord is going to be borrowed from the parallel minor key, the E minor key. So most of this progression that I'm about to play is going to be strictly diatonic to the key of E major, but notice how that once I throw in this D chord, you're going to notice that it adds just that bit of interest that you may be looking for. Alright, so let's hear how this sounds. Okay, so you see how once I threw that D chord in there, things just kind of got a little bit more interesting, okay? Not that the rest of the song didn't sound good. When you stay all diatonic to a key, it's going to sound good, okay? That's what diatonic chords do. They sound good when used together. However, that D chord just threw in just a little bit of interest that you may have been looking for, all right? So that was 5 examples of how you might go about using borrowed chords from the parallel minor key in order to spice up your chord progressions. Now, you may be thinking, well, what about the parallel major key? So let's say that we were treating this key as the key of C sharp minor the whole time, and we might have wanted to look into the key of C sharp major, okay? Otherwise known as D flat major. C sharp is the same note as D flat. Okay, so you can go the other way, all right, and you can borrow those 6 chords, all right. So I'm not going to give examples of that. I'll leave that up to you to try yourself. The main thing to take from this is you now know how to take the circle of fifths. You now know how to locate the 6 diatonic chords, the 3 major and 3 minor chords of any key, and you know that you can look right into its neighboring grouping of 6 chords in either direction, to the right or to the left, and pull from those chords as your parallel key. Okay, so try this out. Try making your own chord progressions. Try, analyzing some songs that you notice that some songs have some weird out of key chords. See if maybe you can figure out where those particular chords are coming from. Just study this stuff. The more that you study it, the more that you pay attention to it, the more that it's going to start making sense, all right? So that's going to be it for the borrowing chords. The next lesson that I make is going to be about the secondary dominants, okay? That's another way of coming up with some non-diatonic chords to add into your progressions, but that is going to be the topic for the next lesson, all right? So with that said, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.